Here I am again with another story, so please consider subscribing to keep me motivated for creating content and bringing it to you for your entertainment. Story 1, How I Handled Being the Only Person in a Group Project Who Gave a Single Shit. Long ago, I was a university student majoring in literature. Naturally, I had a schedule packed with lit classes, and this group project took place during a course entitled Madness in Classic Literature. It was fun, the professor was zany, and the topics were rather interesting. Then, one day, the dreaded group project assignment arrived, where we were to split up into groups of 3 and do a 30-minute presentation on madness in any era of literature. I ended up with 2 studious-seeming partners, one of whom was emphatically invested in doing our project on madness in 1800 Scotland. She was persuasive, we were convinced, but when we told the professor, he kind of winced. Then he held us after class, asked us if we were sure. She certainly was, and he kind of absently nodded and said he'd help us find a couple of sources since literature in 1800 Scotland is apparently more scarce than one would think. We ended up with permission to cover Lord Byron by association, along with an incredibly long and dry text about some guy who is either hallucinating or having an existential religious experience with the devil himself. Now, I've read some boring texts in my day, but this piece was far and away the most mind-numbing collection of words my brain has ever scraped itself against. To make matters worse, it soon became very, very apparent that neither of my partners, including the girl who was gagging over 1800 Scotland to start with, had a single intention of doing any of the work for this project. They didn't even read the material, not even the relatively short Lord Byron poem. Whoa. So, I just dove in and did the entire project myself, including the required handouts that we were supposed to print out for the class to follow along with our presentation. That's when I decided to get petty. I didn't want to be that student who rats on fellow students, but I also didn't want my partners, especially the girl whose love of Scotland forced me into this mess, to get off entirely scot-free. So, I memorized everything. I mean everything. And for the worksheet, I basically wrote down bullet points that revealed nothing about the texts or their contents. The day of the presentation arrives, and I meet my partners in class and give them the worksheets. They're relieved that I seem to know what I'm doing and suspect absolutely nothing. Our time comes, and we stand up in front of the class, with them on either side of me, and I pass out the worksheets and proceed to talk about madness in 1800 Scotland from memory, going into exhaustive detail on Lord Byron and whatever the fuck protagonist, I think his name was Tim, from the other text. My partners were silently, gravely nodding along for the entire 30 minutes. I finished speaking, and then came the QA portion of the presentation. Fellow classmates were encouraged to ask us questions about our era/authors/ etc. And it lasted about 15 minutes, so, I picked a student who asked something about the religious aspects of the dry AF text. I could have answered, but instead, I paused a long, pregnant pause, and gave my partners a chance to answer instead, if they so wished. I let the excruciatingly silent seconds drag on every single time, looking slowly to both of them with each question and taking my sweet time before jumping in. Within a couple of minutes, it became incredibly evident to everyone there that I was the only person in our group project who knew a single goddamn thing about madness in 19th-century Scottish literature. So sure, I did the whole project, and let them think it was fine up until it wasn't. Petty? Absolutely. But by God, if I had to read that awful story because someone else watched Outlander too many times, then I'm going to comply maliciously. Edit. I'm happy to report that the professor pulled me aside after the fact and said that, given our performances, he would be grading me and my partners separately. I got an A, and strangely, they stopped talking to me after that group project, so I have no idea what grades they received. Bad enough to cut contact, though. Bless. Kindly subscribe the channel and support me to keep me motivated for creating content and bringing it to you for your entertainment. Story 2, That's Not Funny. Go home for the weekend. Over 20 years ago I changed an old-timer's computer screen saver. You know, the old one that just had a word banner scrolling over and over. I worked in sales. There was an old guy named Bob. He was annoying. Maybe because I was young. But he annoyed everyone. The kind of old guy that would lie through his teeth to get some of your commission. being older he had more freedoms with customers. It drove us crazy. He would let people leave or they wanted to buy but wanted to use a coupon, he would disconnect the call or get rid of the customer a few different ways. But that meant we as other associates couldn't make the sale. As a team we couldn't hit bonuses. He would do many other things like this that would just drive you crazy. He was just a difficult coworker. And a bad employee. But had been around the industry a long time. So guys that were now managers favored him because of their past. Whether it was with this company or others, he was just annoying, too many reasons to list why. And I was young and didn't have much of a care. And different perception of professionalism when I was a kid, so one day I changed his screensaver to say Bob is a jackass. I watched him type in his password. Waited until he left. Then changed it, it scrolled across the screen. Over and over. And he didn't notice at first. It looked like the same old have a nice day or whatever scrolling. We all would giggle as we walked by and saw it. It was just funny to see. A day or so later he is sitting in his cubicle. Chatting away. His screensaver must have popped up. You hear, what is this? As he reads. Bob is a jackass, who did this? This is defamation. Who did it? The office is laughing. He is pissed. Goes right into a manager's desk. Someone is defaming my name. This is workplace harassment. I want to know who did it. He makes it to HR. Even to the owner's office. We don't know anything other than him complaining to the manager. The manager saying let's see. Seeing it. Giggling himself. Then telling Bob come on, calm down. I'll change it, which he did, let's go take a walk and talk. Bob is not having it but they walk off talking, we go back to work. Not thinking about it anymore. About an hour or two later. A different manager says hey Mr. Johnson wants to see you upstairs. Cool, it wasn't uncommon. He would call associates up for customers or tasks. Or reviews or whatever. As soon as I get in the office he says what the fuck are you doing? Are you trying to get me sued? This guy is an absolute nightmare. Do you know he has sued that company and that one? Why would you do that? You know it is on security camera, right? Using someone else's law's password. You are not supposed to use or share passwords ever. I said it was a joke, none of us thought it was that big of a deal. We often share passwords so we can get info we need. We are all on the same team, he replied. That's a policy violation. That's it. You better hope I can keep him from causing a bigger issue. Go home for the next 3 days. You're suspended. Get out of my office, get out of my building now. I walked out the back door. Down the back stairs to my car and was gone. This was Wednesday. So that meant I had a 5-day weekend. Heck yes. I was stoked, as I make it to my car. I can hear someone yelling, hey James. James. Peggy wants to see you. Peggy was the HR lady, I ignored it. Backed out and drove out the other direction. 15 minutes later. My phone is ringing. I am not answering. No way. Those were the days cell minutes were expensive. I get home. Tell my wife we have a 5-day weekend. It is barely 12 o'clock. We head out to hit the beach about 3.5 hours away. We are excited. About an hour later. My phone is called over and over. My wife says just answer it. So I do. Hey James, this is Peggy. I need you to sign some forms about the 3 days suspension. Sorry Peggy, I was told to leave. I left. I am now out of town. I will have to sign another time. She is not thrilled, but not much we can do. Then a moment later another call. It's my direct supervisor. James, where are you? We need the numbers put together for this client coming in today. And you had the presentation stored on. And this. And that. Where are you? Mr. Johnson sent me home for messing with Bob's screensaver. Nobody told me. Why didn't you come down and tell me? Well, come back and give me the reports and send the files to me. Sorry, I was told to leave the building right now. I have actually already left town. I am over an hour away and won't be turning around. Then give me your password. I can't do that either. I was told not to share them. Sorry, sir. My phone minutes are being used and I can't talk much longer. I don't know what to tell you. Mr. Johnson sent me home. Said leave and said not to share passwords. I am about to go through the coastal hills and will lose reception. Be here first thing tomorrow morning. We need to keep these projects moving. Well, sir. I won't be back until Monday. I was told to leave for 3 days. You have to be kidding. He didn't mean 3 days. I will talk with him. I turned my phone off. Back then, turning your phone off wasn't like turning off a smartphone. So no big deal. But Sunday, when I listened to messages, my manager was telling me Mr. Johnson didn't realize we had projects in the works that I was leading. And that he wants me to come back. The next day, then the next day. His message was my manager saying Mr. Johnson is okay if I provide my password to my manager just this time. Hey, he said leave. I left. He said, no sharing. No sharing. He said 3 days. For a company that never gave any time off. It was awesome to have a nice long weekend. Came back to work and in this shitty business. No big deal. Nothing happened. They made or didn't make the deal. Maybe postponed it. Wasn't my problem anymore. They worked up new reports and Belfast presentations. It was all back to normal. It wasn't like now I was in trouble. Nope. Had my days off and some more. And back to work Monday making a sale, and when you're in sales, problems go away if you sell something. TLDR, I was told I was suspended for 3 days and to leave the building now. Never share passwords with coworkers. This was for a company that never gave any time off other than regular days. Owner told me to leave. I went out the back door. Didn't tell HR or my direct manager. I left town to the beach for a 5-day weekend. They called asking for me to come back. Asking for my password to work on active projects I was leading. I said I cannot do any of that per the owner. This was back before smartphones. So then I just turned my phone off for the weekend and enjoyed the mini vacay with the wifey. Kindly subscribe the channel and support me to keep me motivated for creating content and bringing it to you for your entertainment. Story 3, Toxic ex-boss begs me to leave a company review. I give him exactly what he asked for. For context, I, 29M, recently quit my job as a specialist at a small planning and design firm somewhere in Germany. The place was a mess. The pay was a joke, the leadership was completely unpredictable, and they expected me to do the job of a fully qualified project manager, like planning the entire renovation of a large municipal facility, without the pay or the support. The turnover was crazy. 3 of my colleagues quit around the same time, and during my 4 years there, my boss went through 5 different assistants. I eventually packed my bags and moved to a different city for a fresh start. A week after my last day, my former boss texted me. He casually asked me to please leave a review for the firm on a popular local job review site, basically our equivalent of Glassdoor. He genuinely thought we parted on great terms and assumed I'd drop a 5-star rating to boost their crappy score. I just rolled my eyes and ghosted him. Fast forward to a few days ago. I checked the company's page and saw 3 brand new 4.5-star reviews posted in the same week. They were so obviously faked by management. They all used the exact same HR buzzwords: great work-life balance, amazing health benefits, which was literally just 15 minutes of stretching on Wednesdays, LOL, and magically praised all the exact things people usually complained about. At this point, I remembered his text. He wanted a review? Fine. Let's comply. I sat down and wrote a brutally honest, mathematically precise review. I kept it completely professional and entirely subjective. In my experience, I felt that, so they couldn't legally sue me to take it down. I gave them 1 and 2 stars in almost every category, explicitly mentioning the lack of support, the horrible communication, and the heavy workload, but I didn't stop there. While I was at it, I contacted the platform support team and reported the 3 new 4.5-star reviews for manipulation, pointing out the identical wording and the fact that they were posted at the exact same time. Less than 4 hours later, 2 of the 3 fake reviews were nuked by the platform. The automatic spam filter probably caught them because my boss was dumb enough to write them from the same office PC/IP address. With his fake reviews gone and my honest 1-star review dragging the average down even further, panic mode set in. How do I know? Because my ex-boss texted me again. This time the message was full of typos, desperately asking if I could please leave a good review to help them out. He has absolutely no idea that I am the one who tanked his rating and reported his fakes. I left him on read again. The cherry on top, a buddy of mine who still works there texted me yesterday. He said my review perfectly hit the nail on the head. He also mentioned that since the review dropped, management has suddenly been acting super nice and accommodating to everyone out of pure fear that more people will quit. TLDR, toxic boss asks me to review his company after I quit. He fakes his own positive reviews to boost the score. I report his fake reviews, getting them deleted, and leave the brutally honest 1-star review he specifically asked for. Boss panics and begs me again, not knowing I'm the one who ruined his score. Kindly subscribe the channel and support me to keep me motivated for creating content and bringing it to you for your entertainment. Story 4, Artful Malicious Compliance. Hey Mark. There was no flair for malicious compliance, so I used entitled people because that was the closest match to this story. It's been about 5 years now, so I think I'm safe to post this one. I, 26, at the time, I think, was in my final semester at college and had to complete one more elective to finish my degree. I chose an introductory 2D art course. Let me give a little background about myself at the time, so readers may understand why this compliance is malicious. I am legally blind and at the time was using a motorized scooter to get around due to mobility issues. My mobility was obviously a problem, my vision was less apparent. Nonetheless, I made sure to inform the teacher of this during that first class, and I unfortunately had to remind her every class for the rest of the semester. You should also know this was not a huge class, that would have made her forgetfulness at least understandable. At the beginning of the semester there were only 7 or 8 students. By the end of the semester there were only 4. This story happens about 2/3 of the way through the semester. We were doing a drawing project of the nature of the inner courtyard of school. Unfortunately, a place in the school my chair could not reach due to a large drop from the easiest exit into the courtyard. The other exit took me through a path that would have poison ivy. I had learned this in another class earlier in the year. I tried to tell the teacher that that exit was not accessible, but she disregarded it. She told me that if I couldn't go out the exit I just draw what I could see from the window by the door. Remember that previous mention of my vision? That's where this becomes relevant. So I said that window for 2 hours and sketched what I could see. The result, a large 9 by 12 picture of the blue windowsill with the gray concrete of the courtyard and some blurry trees further in the background. I aced the project. I didn't remind her of my visual impairment again. I'd like to think that my malicious compliance forced her to be more aware of her students, but I doubt it. My only hope from this story is that it makes someone else who is struggling laugh. Also, Mark, you mentioned that your dream funeral was to be launched by Trebuchet out to sea? Have you looked to see that if your body is cremated they might launch the urn into the ocean? Not sure what the laws in the UK are, but might be worth checking out. Kindly subscribe the channel and support me to keep me motivated for creating content and bringing it to you for your entertainment. Story 5. Boss chastised me for a late lunch during a mission-critical outage, so I clocked out when the whole network went down. TLDR, boss tells me to take my lunch only at XY hours when I was dealing with a mission-critical outage until the job was done. Later, I clock out during a very obvious, all-hands-on-deck situation because boss complained the last time I answered the call. The short version: small business. This is my first IT job, but I have decades of blue-collar experience. I was the first IT person the company ever hired, my associates in IT specializing in networking only a few gen ed classes away. My boss kept the platters spinning, but he has no formal training or amateur desire. He wants to offload the tediousness. 3 days prior, I was trying to get a mission-critical computer up and running again, the only computer with the shipping software, and hundreds of packages waiting to ship. I advised an immediate reimage, delete everything and reset to a known good save. I had it on deck for just such an occasion. But I was overridden by the owner, who wanted me to keep Windows in situ and delete/reinstall programs piecemeal and deal with phone support for those programs, because he paid extra for tech support. His call, I followed orders. I was on the phone for hours, and did not leave my post until the job was done. That meant I took my lunch half an hour later. No big deal for me, but when I clocked back in and got back to my desk, my boss was standing there, fuming, because I took a lunch outside of normal hours. He insisted I must take my 30-minute lunch from 12 to 1 as per company policy, so, today, the whole network goes out at 12:25 and I had not yet taken my lunch. Nothing can ping anything. My own personal hunches tell me this is because it's a factory building. There are a lot of high-voltage woodworking machines for factory production level of output, and all of the Ethernet cables are unshielded. Just my hunch, but I really can't do a damn thing, because my company rents out office space as a subletter, so we are not allowed access to the switches and routers. I have no admin access to the infrastructure. So I set up Wireshark to record and a continuous command line ping, and go to lunch. Boss is standing at my desk when I get back today, and gives me a passive-aggressive, "The network is up, by the way," but refuses to call me out further. I had the "I told you so" on deck, though. Kindly subscribe the channel and support me to keep me motivated for creating content and bringing it to you for your entertainment. Story 6, respect time off and don't stress you on your days off. Sure. Works both ways. I don't work for the best company, it's corporate and the higher-ups have little understanding of what goes on at ground level. When I started, it was under a great manager that protected us from most of the crap rolls downhill politics. He was promoted out of the store. And after a few misfires, we got a new manager. She is very loud. She will get in conversations with friends and loudly discuss controversial opinions and swear like a sailor. I've had a few customers quietly ask me why I had not reported her to the manager, then roll their eyes and express sympathy when I said she is my manager. Anyway, there's a system in place for who to call when no manager is available. We are a tiny team, and most of us work solo. If the manager is coming in the morning, we call her the night before with concerns. If she's not and it's the assistant, we call the assistant. Sure, no problem. I found an issue I thought was important enough to inform her right away instead of waiting until the next day she worked. I took pictures and shot a short text explaining it. Food health code violation from one of our vendors. I got back, and this is the exact text. I need you guys to understand that if the store is not on fire, you're not being robbed. You need to be contacting assistant manager's name, not me unless it's an emergency, please. 4 days later, she sends me a text scolding me for not doing my job when it was in fact a managerial level job, not my level. Then the following text a few minutes later saying, "Oh, you did do it. Sorry," and she sent me some points in our store's "good job" system. I didn't respond. I wasn't on the clock. Then she texted me asking what my pay rate was for my review. I decided to respond to this one even though it's kind of, her job to know. I started getting stupid texts from her like, "Do you know where the scissors went?" and stuff that, according to the precedent she set, was not a store emergency and not my problem until I'm on the clock. I ended up deciding that I will not be answering her if I'm not on the clock. She calls, I let it go to voicemail. She texts, I leave her on read until I'm on the clock. Now, the company has made a "no phones while on the clock" policy as well. So, I guess she can't text or call me while I'm on the clock either unless she calls the store phone. That's a whole other can of worms. they want us to use a mandatory app for store communication, but not have our phones out. I asked for clarification on the welcome message on the new app, asking if they are lifting the phones at work ban, or expect us to work off the clock. Everyone in the company got to see my question and the answering, "We'll get back to you," that has yet to happen. Now nobody is using the app because policy says we can't, lol. Whoops. Guess she will have to come in person, on her days off if she wants to talk to me. Maybe she should not have chewed my ass out so hard when I just sent her one text. Kindly subscribe the channel and support me to keep me motivated for creating content and bringing it to you for your entertainment.